Hello, I'm Janna and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. Today we're going to be doing some compartmental crafting and creating a whole bunch of sentiments. Some for the holidays next year and some for everyday use. If you'd like to see exactly which supplies we're going to be using, go ahead and pause here. Alright, let's head over to the Crafty Corner.
Today is going to be all about compartmental crafting, and we're going to be using a variety of Tim Holtz stamps as well as a few wildcards today. For example, Note Quotes CMS 463 is going to be one of our main stamp sets for today. Also, I'll be pulling in some wildcards such as this really cute Snuggle Sloth stamp. And this has a French quote on it. Since I live in Quebec, I frequently need French quotes, particularly around the holiday season. And this one says Joyeux Noël. So we'll be creating lots of little sentiments today with the stamp sets and our random ones. So to start with, I wanted to use note quotes, and we're going to be stamping with these circular pieces. Now, I've already die cut out a bunch of circles, and we're going to be stamping these first and then embossing them. So of course, we've got lots of fun circles, and I cut these out of some of my scraps, and these are all Tim Holtz papers from Ideology. Now let's go ahead and grab our Distress Embossing Dabber, and this is going to get some Distress Embossing ink right onto our stamp. So we'll just give that a good tap, and we will be ready to stamp. I'm kind of thinking I want to be stamping with some metallic colors, so these should look very festive once we're done. Now, I'm not worrying about being perfectly lined up. This is going to be, you get what you get, you don't throw a fit. So we're just going to go in there and stamp. After I have all of these stamped, I'll then pull in the embossing powder, and then we will emboss these. Okay, so just tapping that on and stamping down. And as you can see, we're getting a nice clear stamping with that embossing ink. Okay, there we go. 2 more to go, and then we can bring in the embossing powder. Great. So the whole idea today is to get a jump on next year Christmas. The one thing that really bogs me down when I'm in the creative flow is having the right sentiment. And I prefer to keep a whole box of sentiments around that I can just grab from while I'm creating. I love the sticker book sentiments, but sometimes I want a pre-made sentiment, especially ones that have metallic on them. Okay, so we're all done stamping. I've brought in a piece of scrap paper, and we're now going to sprinkle our embossing powder onto our pieces. So just tapping and dumping that right onto the paper and giving it a little tap. Great. So we're going to do the same thing to all of these, and then I'll be able to bring in the embossing heat gun. Oh, that's going to look so good. I love metallics against darker colors like green and red. It's going to be very pretty, very festive. Okay, pretty good. And if the stamping isn't perfectly clear or we have some flecks in some other areas, I'm not too worried because it's just going to add a little accent to our mini sentiment pieces. Okay, now that we've got powder on all of these, let's go ahead and emboss. Now that we have all of our pieces embossed, it is time to add the sentiments. And oh my word, I love the gold on these vintagey pieces of paper. Okay, so I'm going to start with this peg stamp here. And this is the one that says Joyeux Noël. So let's go ahead and add some more embossing ink to it. I'm thinking I want to do all of these in gold this time. So we're just going to take that and we're going to carefully line that up. Now, the interesting thing about this particular little stamp is that the line on the side of the stamp actually signifies where the top of the stamp is. So it's pretty easy to line this up and stamp it out. Okay, there we go. And this will give me a good stash of those French sentiments that I will need for next year's holiday making season. Perfect. So just that little line, that's my lineup to make sure that I've got the stamping the exact way that I want it. Very convenient, especially since I don't have a clear block so that I can actually look at what I'm stamping. So just line that up again, decide which side I want is up, and stamp. Okay, we just got 2 more, and then I can bring the embossing powder back and we can check out how these are going to look, all beautiful and golden. Okay, perfect. Now the circles, I die cut those with about a 1.75 inch die cut, and that was done with the nesting circles die from Sizzix. So now we're just going to sprinkle that powder on, and I'll carefully tip it back into the jar. We don't need a lot, just enough to cover that sentiment. There we go. Tip that back and give it a little tap. And it looks like our stamping went beautifully. And again, if there's a little bit of extra embossing powder here and there, that is totally fine, because that's just going to give us a little bit more of a slightly grungy and vintage look. If the stamping's not perfect, so much the better. Okay, and there we go. Ooh, I really like this one with the red stripes. It's very pretty. Last one. So there we go. We have got all of our pieces ready to be embossed. So we're just going to jump ahead, and here we go. This is what they look like, all beautiful and embossed. Let's take a closer look at these. Ooh, they are so pretty. I love the metallic, and I'm definitely happy that I got to use up lots of scrap paper. This is why I hang on to my scraps, because you never know when you're going to need little pieces so that you can create sentiments or other small adornments. Very good. So we'll set these aside, and we're going to make more sentiments using the same stamp set, but we're going to mix things up and do things just a bit differently. So let's bring in some distress white heavy stock, and we're going to need some inks, and I think we're going to go with Archival. And we also need to pick out some sentiments. So these little sentiments in the stamp set perfectly match those splotchy outlines. So we're going to just pick a few of these, and then we can start stamping. Let's see here. Focus on the good is a good one. Ooh, I want everyday sentiments now. Make today count. Maybe. Let's see. Definitely trying to get a few different ones. Many thanks, that's a good one. What else? So I'm going to also mix and match. We're going to use the square and the solid matching piece to go with that. And I'm thinking we'll be using some Distress Archival inks. Now I'm just going to line this up on here so I can stamp both at the same time. I want to do the outlines in black soot, and I should be able to get 6 easily onto this piece of cardstock. There we go. Now we'll take our black soot and stamp this out. So we'll just give that a good tap, and then we can start stamping. Okay. I would say that we've got some decent ink on here, so let's flip that over and stamp. So lining that up as close to the edge as we can so we have plenty of space. Perfect. All right, and we'll just reapply the ink, and we can stamp twice more, and that will give us 6 sentiments to play with. Okay, line that up, stamp it down. Good. You know, while I'm stamping these, I'm kind of thinking I also want to do a Valentine's edition of these as well. So be on the lookout for a Valentine's Day themed short. All right. Good. Oh, I really like all those speckles and splatters. That is fun. So now I'm going to switch those pieces out for the solid scribbly portions. And I'm going to be pulling in some other archival inks to give these some color. Now let's pull in our other archival colors since I have these all neatly lined up and ready to stamp. So for the other colors that we're going to be using today, we're going to use a dash of speckled egg. Ooh, evergreen bough. Let's see. What other colors do we have? And let's see, maybe some villainous potion. Then we could add some salvaged patina. Let's see here. I think I want 2 more colors. Let's see. We could... Oh, do I want anything else or are these good? No, let's go with these. Okay. You know what? Kitsch flamingo. That would be another good one. Okay. So I'm taking 2 of the archival inks at a time, and I'm just going to put those directly onto the solid part of the stamp, and we're going to stamp this down, and we're going to get a really cool layered stamped image. Okay, so we've got that, lining things up, giving it a good push. Let's see what we've got. Okay, pretty good. So these don't need to be perfectly lined up. If they're slightly offset, I think it actually looks even better than lining everything up perfectly. So now we've got our speckled egg and some evergreen bough. And we'll just add that ink, and then we can stamp again. After we have our solid colors stamped, we will then go back with the sentiments and add those in with more Distress Archival black soot. Okay, I think we're pretty good, so let's go ahead and stamp this next set. Right there, there we go. Good from pressure. Want to make sure the ink transfers beautifully. There we go. Very lovely to look at. So let's go ahead and take care of our last couple of colors. We've got some Mermaid Lagoon and the Villainous Potion. You know, I gotta say, the Villainous Potion is definitely one of my favorite of the archival inks. Very, very vibrant, and I do love a good purple for crafting. These are going to be perfect for my everyday sentiment stash. Okay, so we've got that, we've got this, and we'll be able to stamp that out. Okay, so we're lining things up. There we go. Good firm pressure. And we'll lift. Perfect. All right. These are ready for some sentiments. So I'm going to take the sentiments and just kind of place them on each of the shapes, and then I'll be able to pick those up with the acrylic block. So let's see. We've got many thanks, hello friend, shine brightly, make a wish, focus on the good, and with all my heart. In my heart. Perfect. So we'll give that a good stamp with the black soot, and then we can do a quick stamping right here. Okay. Great. Now let's go ahead and check out the other 2. We're going to do the same thing. Pick the sentiments up, and then take our black soot and stamp. Take that, give that a couple of little taps. Okay. Nice. Good turn pressure and lift. Beautiful. Oh, I am loving these. These are going to be so fun to use. All right, let's set those last 2. Grab our acrylic block and more black ink. Stamping that out. Very good. And let's stamp those last 2 sentiments. Okay, there we go. So now we've got our sentiments. Let's go ahead and cut them out. here are our completed sentiments. We've cut these out, and I am loving the colors on these. These are great, and they are going to be so fun to add to cards. Lots of color, and I love the text on them. It's really fun. It's such a good font. Okay, so we have these. These are going into our everyday sentiment stash. Now, let's take a look at another option. So, I don't know about you, but I tend to save all of my Tim Holtz packaging pieces because I love to turn these into sentiments. They are great to cut apart, and we're going to do just that, and we're going to also cut up a few scraps and emboss with a couple of different stamps. Again, I'm also improving my stash for the Christmas season, so this seemed like a good time to do more of those. So we're also going to be bringing in the tiny tonic trimmer, and we will be cutting to size. I'm not quite sure where these came from, but I think I got these at Michael's during a sale in Quebec. So not quite sure about that. Now, while we're working on embossing, I also wanted to pull in Crazy Talk CMS 236 and grab a few of these sentiments as well that I will also emboss since we have all the supplies out. These are more everyday sentiments to go with our Christmas sentiments as well. Okay. I think we've got all the ones that are going to be relevant at the moment. All right. Pretty good. So next we're going to want to start stamping. Okay. So let's grab some of our packaging pieces, and I think I will try freehanding a couple of these and see how it goes. If it's not lining up perfectly, then I can always go back and pre-cut my strips to fit each of the sentiments. So with the embossing dabber, we're just going to tap, 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 and stamp it out. There we go. Got that. I think I can do 2 in a row, so we'll need some more embossing ink. Good. And we'll see how that goes. Perfect. Okay. So let's grab our embossing powder. I've got my scrap piece of paper nearby. We've got the embossing powder. And let's see what we've got. All right, that's pretty basic. It looks good. But of course, you'll be able to tell a lot more once we've actually embossed it and turned everything very shiny again. Okay. And here we are. I love that beautiful gold look. Those would be great embellishments for later. So we're just going to trim these on the tiny tonic trimmer and try to stay as centered as we can. I don't think I stamped these perfectly, so I'll need to play with the angle of the trimmer to get the best results. I'm definitely thinking I would rather cut these apart in strips before stamping just to help myself keep centered, because I definitely wandered off the straight line when I stamped these out. But you know what? That's okay. Now we know. And next time we'll use the trimmer to help give us some guidelines. Okay, so let's finish trimming these pieces off, and now we're going to start trimming our pieces. I'm using the stamp kind of as a guideline to tell me about how big I need to create the strips, because I'm going to do a few with that piece. Okay, so I think we're going to be looking at 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to just cut a couple of strips to go with that piece. Okay, just line it up and repeat. I love the grid blocks on the tonic trimmer. It makes it so easy to find my markings and make sure that everything is neatly lined up before I start slicing and dicing. Okay, so we've got a few strips. Let's see. I think I also want to use some of the winter packaging. That'll be fun since I do have some holiday sentiments that I want to stamp. Okay. Turning it around. We're going to keep it the same and use our 3/4 of an inch and cut a few of these. If you notice, this packaging is definitely lighter than the everyday. All right, so that gives me a really good start, and we can now start stamping. So I'm just going to spread these out, and then I will stamp with different sentiments. Okay, let's take a look at the sentiments that we have stamped. We used the Ranger Gold and the Ranger Silver embossing powder, and we were stamping on top of some upcycled Tim Holtz packaging. I love the metallic on that distressed paper. Very fun. Okay, time to move on and stamp with a new set. I also cut some strips of craft stock and some other scraps, and I'm going to be using the Tiny Text CMS 394, and this is for some more everyday sentiments. This time we're going to be stamping with some plain Distress Archival black soot, also using Tiny Text Christmas CMS 424. So we'll get some holiday and some everyday sentiments. Definitely a favorite stamp set because it's a pull-apart one, and there's just so many wonderful sentiments to pick and choose from. And there's definitely some sentiments that I use more than others, so now I can stamp as many of those as I want. So let's go ahead and go through and pick out some of our favorites, and then we can start lining these up and stamping. Okay, that's a pretty good collection for our holiday pieces. So I'm just going to try to put them onto these strips of paper and just see how many I can fit in here. I want to make the best possible use of the space that we have for each of those strips. And all of the words are different lengths, so we can kind of piece them together because they're going to just get cut apart after. So the order of the placement isn't going to matter too much. We just want to get as many as we can onto each strip of paper. And then we'll take that acrylic block and lift and add our Distress Archival black soot. So let's go ahead and put this on fast forward as we start stamping. Now we're going to be doing the exact same thing to our everyday sentiments as well. And check it out. We have got so many sentiments. These are great. And these are nice and small, so they'll be very easy to slip onto cards. Let's set these aside and move on to our next technique. Now, this is going to be featuring Holiday Whatnots CMS 496. This is a really fun set. And this is one of my favorites to do this technique, which is distress watercolor stamping. Now, I learned this technique during one of the many Tim Holtz demos, and I love this because it's very simple. All you need are your distress watercolor pencils, and we're just going to color. And then we'll have some multicolored, beautiful stamped images. And I decided to pull in a mixed media tag for my substrate. We're going to go with Merry and Bright and Have a Merry Christmas. They've got lots of stars and the font is so fun. Let's go ahead and bring in our distress watercolor pencils and check out the colors that we're going to be using. And I'm also going to bring back that clear acrylic block to lift up our stamps, and then we're going to give these some color. So for colors today, we're going to be using Mustard Seed, Mowed Lawn, Prize Ribbon. We're definitely going to need the Distress Sprayer, and I believe that is Candied Apple. So let's go ahead and start coloring these in. So we're going to be coloring with the Candied Apple, and I've dipped the Distress watercolor pencil into a little puddle of water off to the side. I find that this makes the transfer of pigment onto the stamp much easier. So we're just going to dip and color, and we're going to continue to do this for all of the colors on both stamps. So let's go ahead and put this on fast forward as we finishing up coloring, and then I'll give these a little spray, and then we'll be able to stamp. Okay, so we have everything all colored. Let's give this a little spritz from the Distress Sprayer, and then we can stamp. And we're stamping on one of the Tim Holtz mixed media tags. So lining that up and carefully pressing this down, and let's see what we're going to get. And let's lift. Okay, not bad. A little bit watery, but since this is distressed watercolor stamping, a little bit of wateriness is not a bad thing. Here are our trimmed sentiments. Very pretty, very festive. So we'll set those aside. And now we're going to set up for another technique for sentiments. We're going to be switching over to distress embossing powders, and we've got some lumberjack plaid and some rustic wilderness. We're going to be pulling in the stamp set CMS 340, and this is bold tidings, and this is the mini version. So we're going to pick a few of these, and we will stamp these down with some distress embossing ink, and then we'll be able to add some magical glazes. So bold tidings mini, and this is the holiday edition. Okay, so I'm just going to pick a few, and I might even be able to get 9 going across this. So far we've got Believe in the Magic, Holly Jolly Christmas, Merry and Bright, and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. Let's see. 'Tis the Season to Be Jolly. Very good. Let's see. What's next? Ooh. So many good ones. Making Spirits Bright. Jingle All the Way. I think I've got room for one more. Okay, let's go with this one. And that is... I'll have to move this. I can't quite see what I'm doing. There we go. Lift that up. Okay, and I'm going to want my embossing dabber. We've got some gold for a bit of an accent. Whoop, lost one of the stamps. Dashing Through the Snow. That's what we got. Okay, so we're going to take the embossing dabber and we're going to tap that right on, and then we'll be ready to emboss. A few more dabs, check to make sure we've got nice and shiny ink everywhere, and we are ready to stamp this out. So we're going to place that big block right down here, and we're going to apply good firm pressure, and then we can start sprinkling those beautiful embossing powders. Okay, giving it a good press. Should be pretty good. I want to make sure everything gets nice equal pressure. Let's lift. Okay, and we will take our Distress White Heavy Stock off the back. There we go. And it looks good after giving that a quick tilt in the light. So we've got our scrap paper. We're going to set everything down. And then we're going to open up the jars of glaze and the Ranger Gold embossing powder. So we'll just set those right on the paper. And then we can start sprinkling. Okay, we've got all of our jars ready to go. So we'll take a generous pinch of our first color and just twist and sprinkle. We don't need to add a lot because we're going to be doing a little tap on the back to make sure that everything is evenly distributed. There we go. Just want to sprinkle everything on. Make sure you've got color in all of the spots, and the little gaps can be filled in later. And we're just doing a little pinch and twist. So I don't want to go too heavy on the gold. The gold is just going to be an accent. The main stars of the show here are going to be the red and the green, respectively Rustic Wilderness, and I believe we got some Lumberjack Plaid here. Okay, so we have got a pretty good covering. Just going to try to fill in some of those little gaps. And let's go ahead and we're going to start tapping and moving this around. As you can see, the embossing powder is sticking into all the spots where we have stamped with the ink. There we go. Pretty good. I might need to do a little bit extra. I see a couple of blank spots, but not to worry. That is easily fixed. Okay. Very good. And a teeny tiny bit more of the red. All right, let's go ahead. We're just going to carefully tap that off, and we should be good. If we have a couple of splotches here and there, that's going to be okay. I'm kind of thinking I might want to distress those pieces later, but the main thing right now is to get our sentiments so that we have a good stash for more creative fun. And of course, let's go ahead and put the tops back on the glaze. And here we are. Look at that. So pretty. I can see the accents and everything. Let's take a look at all of that beautiful embossing now that we've cut it out. So pretty. Now on to our last technique for sentiments. Now I've got this great stamp set. It is Stuff to Say CMS 110. And there's a few fun pieces on here that I'd love to use for some art journaling. Now, I'm just going to pull off a few of these, and then we're going to make a very colorful background because I'm trying to think of ones that kind of talk about art or positivity for the future. So let's go ahead, pick a few, and then we're going to make a super colorful background. Okay, and that's a good one. Oh, I kind of want one more. Let's see here. Perfect. So I've now got a good stash of stamps, and I am going to grab a few extras, I think, from this other stamp set. I'm just kind of lining things up, and then we'll see what we have room for after. Okay, perfect. Shine brightly. Oh, what else do we have? Live your story. That's good. And own your dreams. I love that one. Oh, this is CMS 446 Noteworthy. Let's see here. I think I've got room for one more. Let's see here. There are just so many good ones, but I'm really trying to think of ones that I might use in art journaling sets. So trying to pick accordingly. All right, let's go with that one. Be fearless. Perfect. So we're going to take a large acrylic block, and we're just going to lift all of these at the same time, and I'm going to stamp with Distress Archival black ink. But we're going to do that after we've made this background super colorful. Now, I'm going to be using distressed spray stains for our background, and I have to go for bright rainbow colors because those seem the most cheerful and optimistic to me right now. So let's go with some picked raspberry and squeezed lemonade. There we go. And then I need to find the mermaid lagoon. That will give me the right colors to create a beautiful rainbow. Now, I'm not going to do a gradient this time. Typically, I like doing a gradient, but I want this to kind of be more random. We're just going to spray and let the colors do what they want. So let's go ahead, give that a good mist, and we'll pick up our colors and start spraying. So I'm starting with the picked raspberry, just a few splotches here and there. Then we'll go in with the squeezed lemonade. I can already see we're getting some beautiful orange in here. Okay, pretty good. Now let's go in with the mermaid lagoon, and that will get us our purples and greens. Now I have to take it easy with this one because the sprayer tends to be a little vigorous, so I'm doing little half sprays to avoid overwhelming the other colors. Okay. So we're going to add some more water to get this blended, and then we will dry this with the Ranger Heat tool, and we're going to kick this on fast forward as we finish drying, and then we're going to add some spritz. Ooh, beautiful. I love all that sparkle on there. That is fantastic. It's drippy and it's got sparkle and it's got a rainbow of colors on here. Definitely what I was going for. So the next thing that we're going to be doing will be to stamp with that big acrylic block that I put down, and we're going to be using our Distressed Black Archival soot. So let's grab that and start stamping. So we'll just tap that ink on. Want to make sure we have really good coverage over all our letters. And I should be able to get a really good batch of sentiments out of this. Now, I'm probably not going to cut this on the Tiny Tonic trimmer. I think we're going to use the Tonic recoil scissors to do our trimming. Okay, so the inking is looking pretty good. I'm just giving that a little tip and lining that up best we can. And we'll stamp this and use good firm pressure. I want to make sure all that beautiful detail transfers onto our gorgeous background. Okay. Just pushing, making sure that everything's going to be good. I want to have nice, vibrant black color. Pretty decent. Okay. Ooh, very sparkly. These are going to be so fun to use in art journaling. Can't wait. All right. And here we are. We did end up using the Tonic recoils to cut these apart, and I am very happy with the end result. They're so sparkly and they're fun, and they'll be a great addition to my sentiment collection. So that was our last sentiment technique for today. Let's take a look at all of the other sentiments that we have created. We've been playing with embossing powders, distressed watercolor pencils, and we've been using a combination of stamps that are holiday and everyday stamps as well, because really you can never have enough sentiments. And we've stamped on a variety of substrates too. We've used distressed mixed media, watercolor paper, scrap paper, and of course I've saved lots of packaging from Tim Holtz products, and those are great pieces to stamp on as well. And look at this, we've got a beautiful collection of sentiments that I will be able to use and carry through to next year, Christmas. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner for this sentimental journey. We've had lots of fun playing with stamps, embossing, and many other distress products. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video, and until next time, happy crafting.